다들이야. ane chilab rimugi dene khashwadaji Potowa chilab rimudi shortang the A4 size lagorodaji di shortang jusumzi do zezanda di ma thari nima sumre liya 창화지 야고지 슈트야 돼. 갈라가고 주지 처음에 넣었어. 다지 당과를 니에서 또 지되는 안 되는 샤래. 지된 때 드셔를 주는 체비는 안 달로사 갈라가고 샤래. 다들이 인도산에 엔다디지 당과 샤야 돼. 디스 강에로 테스.
The long soliloquy by Potowa takes about 13 pages on A4 size paper. And so it's actually difficult for me to teach the entire text over the course of just 3 more days. One way would be for me to just read the text straight through, but then it would be difficult for me to give any explanation.
다들이 인도산에 지당 셰비미나 에너지기 가르쳐다 Kagyu Monlam ki ringlia da ji ngondre sungchue de nezu khachi da imne ngushi Kagyu Monlam ki kalya je gaze tudu ji kadambi ji kadam komatsuge ji sung lekshye de ma ji gaze tudu ji ma YouTube chone abushta manros karesana ji nyame tabu Kagyu ni kasha chu jingji cheche and jijun milere bana ma gyube ji chaga shimboda 나르슈루기 규바 냠셰 남버선도 마세베 근데 조지 해지니 규비 기부스미 람린라 조디 지 튜몽기 가로다지 조디 시자르디 안 기부스미 람린디 시자르나 디토리아 아니지 로림기 장스비제수 데네 차게치보다 슈루기 냠레나 저도 수원되게 어레 Maybe do something to send then. A cassette to Ruchi. Could you more musically? Gadam come soon to cassette to Shetuna summer.
Now, the pre-Monlam teachings are a slightly different matter, but during the teachings during the actual Kagyu Monlam, I think it is best for me to teach as much as I can from the words of the great Kadampa forefathers. And the reason for this is that in the Dakpo Kagyu, we are the confluence of the lineages of the Kadampa and Mahamudra. And so this means that we practice the instructions on the Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa that come down from Milarepa. But the foundation for that practice is the gradual training in the 3 types of individuals that descends from the great Lord Atisha. That is like the foundation. Once we have gradually fully trained our mind, then we begin the practice of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas. And so for that reason, during the actual Kagyu Monlam, I think it is best to, or I try as much as I can, to teach the words of the Kadampa masters.
다들이 인도산 가자도도로 반 드시게 다지 달로 마사나 사나 모티니 샤르 드시는 드그면로 선토스 정도.
And so for that reason, I thought it would be best for me to give as many explanations as I can, and then we can continue this next year.
다들 가담비 다디 포도의 칠럽이 모스 다디 로존 칠럽이 뭐야 쇼요아래 디 제바보다 가장 쉬운 신기 가담비 계획 신이 군지 수모 다 군지 시스제 용수 잡아 디나네 보도와 린제세 다 군지 시장 군지 숨장베이나 보도와 지장아와지 부중화지 군지 숨체 군지 시장베이나 에는 게시 칸발롱바디 네네 군지 시처라 보도와 지장아와 부중화의 군지 숨다 군지 시장베이나 디딩도 칸발롱바 게시 칸발롱바디 네베이나 군지 시처 있어요.
Now, this text, the long soliloquy of Potowa, is also called the mind training, the long soliloquy. And its author is well known as being one of the three or one of the forefathers of the Kadampa lineage. As I mentioned yesterday, it is Potowa Rinchen. And so if we... Potowa Rinchen San. And so when we consider there as being three Kadampa forefathers, then this would be Potowa, Chengoa, and Buchunga. And then when we consider there being four forefathers, in addition there is...
Maybe brother? Not good? Okay.
In Tibetan, it's literally brothers. It sounds better to say forefathers in English for some reason. And the fourth one is adding includes a master from Kambalomba.
다 될라양 게시 보도와 디 충서디 편유를 중이버래 편부 다 디상 종지래 편부 훈줍 종사지 종지래 디스트릭트 지래 다 디난 편별롱 배기 나올라야 중지래.
Now, Geshe Potowa was born in Nepal in a district called
Tibet.
Excuse me, a district of Tibet called Khenchen Hlundu.
It's Pembol Hlundu, the district of Pembol Hlundu Zong. Its current district name is called Pembol Hlundu Zong.
So the district is currently called Pembol Hlundu Zong.
Rinchen sal sa cendi rubdu chungye kaus tobe cenyi.
His name, Rinchen Sang, is the name he was given when he was ordained.
Da kongi ji da kadampe ji karure da di geshe tembal rom tembal ya lo dun tene tangwa shubem.
He spent 7 years serving the great Kadampa master Domtumpa and received the instructions then.
Tene chi tene konga lama geshen rom tembe ki tensa rading ki tensa ten zingyong lo chis nang nes ine ya ta ko tis lo chis nang di jele ya tis tuk trobo ro shira mo jong chi tene korang ge chung yu samre pen yu li ya pen bu lung ba pen bu sa di lung ba de ya pa pe che shu imre.
And then he spent a year administering the main seat of Dromtumpa, Radring Monastery. But it seems he was not so pleased with doing this, and so later then he returned to his homeland of Pempo in Bayu.
Da dene kongi penyu li ya poto gomba saji. Da gomba sen le ya poto saji. Dene ji gomba ji tab na re chi.
And he founded a monastery in Payu that was called the Poto Monastery.
Dene kongi kadambe lengrim tam sungbe kabli ya ji pe mangbu sha chi. Pe dene mangbu sha chi sungu yebe indu sane kadam pe shu sa di chung yi bare. Daga na shingi kadam shungju gi sheba 가담 슌주기 시작바 야첨부 제베 인주산 디규제된 가담 바사가 첸디 아니 망부지스잖아 아니 게시 포도의 값 아니 가담 바사 첸디 충분해서 소소를 내 있어요.
Now, when in the Kadampa masters, in their works, they give many different examples, and so sometimes they and analogies and comparisons. So sometimes they're described as the lineage of comparisons. But then Potowa also wrote a text called the establishing the positions of the oral tradition or the Kadampa. And so in this way, many people explain that the name Kadampa comes from Geshe Potowa.
다들 공기 로메기 투디 닌더 송직도 섬르베 닌더 니는 신기다 로메 투 니마다 나와도디 게실 렁르 탕바당 게시 샤라와 나바니 쇼임바레
His two foremost disciples, who were like the sun and moon, are the Geshe Langri Tampa and the Geshe Shariwa.
다들 대단한 신기 가담베 게시 카라 곰중세라보다 다는 신 게시 뉴그룸바 게시 까마바 게시 뉴스르바 다는 신 게시 뚜룽발라서바 가담베 게시니 다 간다르베 년라지 망부지 다 공로마이브레
There are also many other great Kadampa masters who were his students. There was Nyurumpa, there's Neosingpa, Tulungpa, Kangbu, and Karampa, and various other great Geshes who were his students.
자, 가다 가장 쉬는 신기, 보도웨기 주디 미다발이야. 냠내로 쉬시나지 미다바 코나지 냠시나지 용디 유스레 냠내기 티도 지 냠내기 조로 나지.
Now, as I mentioned yesterday, Potowa's main practice was the contemplation of impermanence. He was always thinking about impermanence. This formed the center or the basis or the primary aspect of his practice.
개념지기 보도와를 건지 쉬비스 다 최직배 냠내차 최직 미직이 최직지부 냠내 차이미나 다디 냠내 가르치는 거라서 냠내 신다게 맞지비세 최직지부 냠내차나 냠내데 가르치는 거라서 건지 쉬두산에 계시 보도에 다 최직마다 냠내 지금 매비나 다데 가르 냠내 차오라서는 미다바고마데
There once was a lay practitioner who asked Potowa, if you can only do one Dharma practice, then what is that practice that you should do? If you can't do any other practices and can only do one practice, what should you do? And Potowa responded, if you can only practice one Dharma, then what you should practice is impermanence.
다디 미다바 지기 미다바도 진지지기 다 가다 최신나 냠내 마세바이냐 냠내 마세기 지기다 미다바 코나 냠내 첸다 딘데베 미다바도 내가 심부든데 가르 차디 어르스나 다데 균세 망부지 소지 다 균세 망부지 소래 다 디나는 자 베나 베차천베이미나 베춘섭 쉬베이미나 미다바 곰 되네 곰바는 신기 미다바디 유레 계속나 되네 패도 가려야 그랬잖아 당부 최최의 유치가 됐어 최바 최야바 이제 미다바 유리 깨버들 대신에 당 아직 최지 수고도 삼아라 되지기 간다라 가져야 되지 내가 참지 못했어 네 디균선 때는 최최의 유치가 됐어 되네 바로 최주베 겐치가 됐어 다 최예비 수고래야 근데 최대 양다바지 주야지 최대 약보지 가서 취든 튀면지 냠len샤야 그 미다바 냠len 용게 지면 냠len샤 펜토르스 근데 다는 타마 최 타르침비 좋아지거든 다지 미다방 오마지 귤이 깨서나 최 타르머진기 봐도 디시도 진에 가서지 다 르마당 치지 네 가서 최 타르침을 지거래스 근데 손
And so what is the main point here in saying that if you don't practice any other dharma but only meditate on impermanence? What is the main point in saying this? There are many different things that can be said about this, but for example, if you meditate upon impermanence and then you realize it as you have meditated upon it, then in the beginning it is the cause that makes you seek the Dharma. When you have meditated upon impermanence and realized impermanence, then you think to yourself, I need to get Dharma teachings, and you have a great desire for Dharma teachings. And so this is the cause of you seeking the Dharma. And then in the middle, it is the condition that brings you to accomplishment. After you have first realized it and found the Dharma, then you try to practice that Dharma truly. You try to practice it properly. And so the meditation or the practice of impermanence is beneficial in this as well. Eventually, in the end, it is the companion or the aid to achieving the final result. And so because of meditating upon impermanence, then you will not give up until you have achieved the ultimate result. And so in this way, it is an aid to achieving the ultimate result of the Dharma practice.
제가 계시 보도에게 지 공글로마리아 다 교란기 치워미다 봐서데 야네양도 곰 치워미다 봐고 야네양도 삼동고레스.
And so for that reason, Potowa told his students that they should repeatedly meditate upon death and impermanence. They should contemplate it over and over again.
다 칭예베가 로스머베 지 간다르지 치워르게베 로타 쳐버르 근데 충분히미나 디바 포야사 근데 깔레 침부시라나요 말스 개월 주발라 깔레 침부시라나요 말스 가르사나 수술해야지 치wen직베가 로 슉창부지에 인유산에 디기 슉이 간다르지 가다 디바 포야다 개월 주야리아 깔레 잡투버지 당 다나 신기 텔리아 준주 지 제투가 그러지 랑갱랑기 용어를 했어.
This is because if you have the certainty that you are going to die, you have that definite feeling that you're going to die, then it is not difficult for you to give up misdeeds, nor is it difficult to accomplish virtues. The reason for this is that because of having such a powerful fear of death, the strength of that will make you be able to have the diligence and put in the effort to be able to give up the misdeeds and to be able to accomplish the virtues. This will automatically occur.
제자 다당 알아주지 딕봉 기트르 치알랑 아솔 강에 태워 지 딕바 봉아 개와 주야 텔량 아솔이야 레라우요마 아솔 다 깔레 접투요 마레 다나 신기 에너지 가수에 다 신다 파샤네 다 베네 니마치리아 지 베네 몰람드 수비미네 니마치리아 아니 약부치지 간다지 베 몰람 그 소래 나로래 약부치지 대투야래 강에 가서 강에 태도와 제가 띠 가르칠 되는 가서 강에 태어스라면 아주 그 셈이야 Potowa suna azu ki semliya chiwa midaba ji ngone tene ta ji chiwa chingebe ki sambaji ngazoro magebe insa di gyunzen de ne energy susu ki lunga yison de kanda gilu da nyomle sene trado lele wando shorni de lega garina chemato ba kale chamato ba dana 신기 준주 chemato ba ji yongores 계신 아주 심규리아 아다지 칭예베게 삼바 로타셔버 근데 중국 이미나 아니 디봉 기두치알 강에 되었어요 말고 랑킹 랑키 간다지 가르주지 심슈 지다 다나 신기 지 쪼안로 지 연구했어 근데 소리
But it's difficult for us to give up misdeeds and to accomplish virtue. It's not easy for us to do this. And if we think about it, it's very difficult for us to actually do this. I mean, if we don't even think about any other times, even just a single day, such as during this Monlam, here we are gathered in the Monlam, and for us to spend a single day behaving well while we are holding this Monlam is rather difficult. And so the reason why it is difficult, as in what Potowa says, is because we have not really realized in our minds, in our hearts, that death and impermanence. Because we have not developed that certainty that we will die, then it is difficult for us, or then our body, speech, and mind become rather indolent or slothful. That means we get lazy. And when we get lazy, then no matter what we try to do, it is difficult for us to be diligent about it. But if we develop the certainty that we are going to die, then there is no difficulty in giving up misdeeds, because we naturally will, within our mind streams, develop that enthusiasm and inspiration. And now I'll read a little bit from the long soliloquy.
대신도 천디다 치마니 민주배 대야 치마 편지 개체 취샤마지 작업을 도냥
One arrow cannot kill two deer. One dog cannot bite both your ankles. You cannot sew with a two-pointed needle. If you step forward with one foot and back with the other, you will never get where you are going. Likewise, you cannot accomplish both this life and the next, and the next and following lives are more important. Thus you must practice Dharma genuinely.
치와 샤마지 테나 ngöbo thamje la jensen gi du zabung wan rawa ji wong do khoe dongye gi gyu shamar lo na ji gyang go ba me nyang ba yang chung de za na chen di lu ma la lo shamar lo ni shen da sam ba ye mi dyun ba shi mi dyun ba ji wong do de chen di che tab sang tab ba shi che mi thong za na min di gu gi ning la ji ten ba yin nyang ba wong do.
When you truly remember death, all things will be like hay heaped before a carnivore. When the suffering of samsara truly nauseates you, the thought will frequently occur to you that you need nothing at all. At that time, your mind will genuinely turn away from ambitions for this life, and your attitude will be completely incompatible with anyone else's. When I see people only doing things to become great and get good things in this life, I wonder, what are all these people thinking in their hearts?
Dandi garasana jigi chunji densa 춘지된 사야데 가르사나다 직된 사야데 검들은 직된 사야데 천디 코나 된도니야럽지 천디기다 채탑 상탑 지 첨보용학 탑시 상보용학 탑시 코나 된도니에 된게들래야 직된 바스 최바스도상 가르사나사나 치마 편지기 딱한다 지 펜데 된도니에 된게 될래야 최바스라고 지당게 최는 직된 사야들라 그런 지시 잡당 왕고 주어리네 껌들이야 드레지 사부동.
And so here we are talking about the Dharma and the worldly. So here the worldly means when we have interest only in this life, when we do things to become great or do things to get good things in this life. That means that when we do things to become great and good, when we try to become good in this, to get good things in this life, when we're only thinking about this life, then that is what we mean by worldly here. Dharma in this context means thinking about the next and future lifetimes. It means bringing oneself benefit and happiness in the future lifetimes. So that means a Dharma practitioner. In general, there are many different explanations of the meaning of Dharma and worldly, but in this context here, this is what it means.
금디기 최된 지된 사야디 미유베데 가르 군이 미유디 경계차 가임받은 거 마스베 경계차 가르서 찌기 센데 관나 되는 얘기 알아 찌기 세치마 편식 되는 얘기 알아 제가 군이 가임받은 거 마스베 경계차 대 경계차디 예베 인두산에 다디니 니가 냠도 용답이 와만
And so here, the Dharmic and the worldly have very different aims. Not only are their aims different, their aims are essentially contradictory. One is only interested in this life. One is interested in the next and future lives. And so these are not just different aims, they are contradictory, opposite aims. And so for that reason, there is no way that these two can go together.
서럽지만 상로마다 센데 상보용하다 첨보용하다 탑시 제비나 다 미기와 텐데 알아서 미기와 뭔고 제고야 알아서 미기와 제비나 땡에손 주고야 알아서 서치만 편지 삼담이나 다 개월 주고야 알아 아다지 원토 공방 라서바데 주고야 알아 제가 디니 니가로 녜손 주바다 원토 주바니 뒤지라 용고 말아
If our aim is for this life and not the next life, then for the sake of this life, we need to do many unvirtues. And because of doing these non-virtues, we will then be reborn in the lower realms. If our aim is for the next and future lives, then we need to accomplish virtues. We need to accomplish the happy states. And these two, the lower realms and the higher realms of the happy states, cannot both be happen at the same time.
야부시부지 배 니가로 야부용하로 지대 삼단되고 지단다 천디기 된주야다 세침에 된주야 지단 차네 가와처가 아이나 삼천 그래서 지단다 천디 된 섬으로부터지 지 천디라 칼라사진 고래 아니지 류로 배야진 고래 다는 신기 템뷰지 고고라 다데 다 이면에 천디 코나 천디 지부올이야 된 니지 가르 천디 지부가 된들레베 지부올 비 삼로 비 리버 드림 안 디지부올이야 베 가르라다지 미유티 터도 미유는 디지부 송세 되 세비나 다데 군이가 차로
And so here he gives many different examples of this, such as one arrow cannot kill two deer. So what our hope is that we can actually, what we usually hope is that we can do both the Dharma and worldly things. We want things to be good in this life and in the future lives. And so this is our hope. This is what most of us hope. We want for things to be, we want to have both. And so generally, when we think about it, when we think about the needs of this life and the needs of future lives, sometimes I wonder, are they really contradictory? Because in this life, we do need food. We do need clothes to wear. We do need a few things. But if our aim is only upon this life, if we only think about and concentrate entirely on this life and focus our attention on this life and have no other ultimate aim than this, then that is contradictory.
And 지금 빼지 가르샤르잖아. 아주 고맙부두사네. 깜바 예지 파샤, 깜바 예지 취변 러싱 말았어. 직 파피 직 취변 러싱 말았어. 단 로고는 깜바 니가 로베 가르쳐 관로고이나 판로고이나 깜바 니가 파본 로로 마도 깜바 예지 파피 깜바 예지 취변 러싱 말았어. 다가난 생기지 이제 최지 주구에 노도지 파스텔. 아 수때는 지된 주구에 노도 제베 니가 로래야 깜바 인주 자체네 된도다 최지리 니가 루야지 용고 많았어.
Another example that he gives is of walking. If you're trying to go someplace and you step forward with one foot and you step backward with the other foot, you're not going to get anywhere. Both feet need to move in the same direction. If you're going to get where you're going, you have to move both feet in the same direction. If you want to go over there, you need to walk with both feet in that direction. If you go in that direction with one foot and then the other direction with the other foot, you're not going to get anywhere. And it's like that. We try to take some steps in practicing the Dharma. We imagine that we're practicing the Dharma. Then we take some steps to imagine that we are doing something worldly, and we try to step in both directions. But in actuality, it's difficult to do both.
세상 아주 삼루베 땡땡 삼루 가르쳐지 흘려 당거라서 오늘 전에기 지 가르 두야에 맞지 수수 미지데 정부게요 말았어 미지 튼두지 마도요 말았어 미지 체가는 니니야로 왔다 미지 체가 니니야로 와다 님의 콘디스 주주죠 봐 니니베 걸은 내가 지었을 다 미지 체가 뒤에 다 미지데 곱샤를 잡이네 체가는 니니인데도 다 체가 뒤 다 체가 뒤에 주주 망고증 아주 초라 주고다 다 뒤나는 오늘 전에기 다지 미지 튼두지 마도 매베 이미 뉴스안에 다 수수 곱샤를 잡이나 오늘 전에 내가 차가 주주 오늘 전에 수수기 삼배 내가 주야 주주 다 미망고질이야 베너지 다 당부 쇼베야 랑드네지 클라사다 디기 양지 주주 망고지 산로로 봐 다들 미망고질라 내가요 내가 가시지 수수 내가 더 전대 매베이네 다지 도고를 토네 내가 더 맞이라 제일 도치 제가 디기 내가 차가 주주의 파유 당 오늘 전에 수수기 삼번는 신기 수수 삼년나 예번는 신기 내가지 제고 삼나 디 제하고 두주 가져야 미지지가 나. 디 제하고 두주 싫어요. 제자다 두주 균주지 마도 매비 인두산 디 나로라 야나 챈디 두고르스 야나 챈치마 두고르스 다 챈디지긴 듀마 간데지 셰비네야 듀마디 찌르 제네스나다도 다 간다르지 미유디 직송제 제비나 고라 펜토 치그레 랩 치그레 캡 치그레 다 간다르디 펜토 치그레
So we really need to think about this. We need to take our time and think about what is it that we really need in this life. This life is not very long. This life is very short. And we spend half of this life sleeping. During the day when we're not sleeping, we can do a few things, but in the night we're mostly asleep. So we spend a half of our time asleep. And the other half of the time actually we waste a lot of that remaining time. And so we have a very short time, and we have to divide our time, or partition our time. We have to think very carefully about how we're going to apportion our time. So many people, you wake up and you get up in the morning, and then you have breakfast, and just that takes an awful lot of time. And then most people have to go to jobs. Even if they don't want to go to their job, they need to go to work in order to be able to afford their food and clothing and so forth. And so, even if you were able to give it up and do whatever the job that you would like to do, or do the work that you would like to do, how much time do you actually have to do it? We haven't got much time at all. We only have a very short time. And so in this short time, are we going to work for the sake of this life, or are we going to do it for the sake of the future lives? So it's important that whatever we do, we have to have a single aim. If we try to do both, we won't get it done. If you have a single aim, then there is more benefit. You're more able to get things done. There is a greater profit to doing it. So it is more beneficial to have just a single aim.
제가 다 포도와 디 코란 된지 가르쳐에 뭐냐면 지den기 되매에 샤와 지 디솔리아네 가르쳐다지 된다자는면도 초민도 삼네 다들 셴바를 로스 셴바로네 셴바로 연두사네 되네 미신다다 냠도 제바치두사네 쿠즈기 삼로 동단다 포도와 나랑기 섬르베 코랑기 세나라도 포도와 나랑 섬르베 삼로 동단디 퉁기민두스 가라사나 공기 다 지딩 자와드라데 초민두 삼바르지 공기 삼부들이 땅 현다디즈기 지딩 자와드라데 개심부이 뭐라고지나 다 첸디기지 가르라다지 채답 상답들어디 개침의 임을 지삼다에 대해서 남지 계제 시도에 안에 삼동 나가서 퉁으면 됐어. 제가 네 고zul라 가르쳐다지 네 가르쳐다지 시체에서 네 고zul이야다지 보도와 코랑기 미시다드서 처음에와 통 미시다드서 보도와 처음에와 통네 다 파주 니가 처음에 통도스.
And so Potowa himself saw that the worldly aims and the sake of the world is not beneficial. It's pointless and meaningless. And so he was revolted by this. So because he was revolted by the worldly, when he would make connections with other people, then their attitudes and his own attitude did not fit at all. They did not match at all. And this is because he would say that there is no point at all to anything worldly. And others would think there's no point to what Potowa's is doing. Potowa would think there's no point to the worldly. There's no point in only doing things to become great and get the good in this life. And so when they would have conversations, or their attitudes would be incompatible. Potowa would worry about the other people, and the other people would worry about Potowa, and they'd both think that each other was doing something pointless and meaningless.
rāngla shātsāne kio tēdār māche gēkhār nyōmōngde rō kāchā pāzam tsā ki gēchor ki chōyi rāngshū kāne rāngda dīgōba yīn sēne chōyān dēba māngbō chōngde kōng namla yāng tē namla yāng kōng wōr chē ngā la chōyān dēba dē dēng kōng ngā la shātsāwa yīn yāmba mā chōng lār rāngla yē yīmū shē tēwa chōngde dīgōngi chō mā sāmbar dō 마치 나다 대주인이 칭해반도 남치 참이도 가자 소리라 신의 지죽체
So So the text continues, many people have been concerned for me and given me advice. Don't be like that. You'll have trouble when you are old. Keep a few things. It will aid your spiritual practice. You need to knock and shoot your own arrow. To them I say, thank you, your advice may be true, but I have never thought they were concerned for me. Instead, I have felt even more depressed and disgusted. None of them think about the Dharma. It might be so if we were not to die, but death is certain. We do not know when we will die. What will we do if we die while still accumulating things?
Potowa shasa yuding somewhere. Potowa dizzy carre. Potowa trouble somewhere. Potowa shasa yuding it today. Ngala shasa yuding it is wicked in the shade of Sangalabe. Lob doing receipt. I joran to reach you a marasta. Joran the name Uma con Redinle, Dessa can debra, Reding Zinjon, Reding the Takatam Begi, Dessa Zudra, Drum de Begi, Dessarva. Just a woman logic Rinia, Kongi Reding, the Zion Chevers tagging a Shusaiba. Just a woman Chora Redinia, the Dusane, Redin like Geshi, Chule, Gerache, Yomaras. Ina Yacho Redin a trust once, Redin a turning, Lur the turning, the chess once, they cannot did you chase it to resta. Did you turn mana tata? Redingi dancer di Geshe Chungo Asada, Geshe, New Basa, the Jusare, Tizul short swings about that. Tizul short rumors, did you try man? Tata Chora Redingi be dancer down the bay, but Tabe, the bush you chase a dead hours. Did you chase it to songs, Joran?
And so here, at this time, there were people who were concerned about Potowa. You could say there were his friends, people who were concerned about him and who gave him advice and who were saying, don't do that, what are you doing? It's like they're saying, you were at Radeng. This was Radeng Monastery. As I said before, he spent a year administering the monastery at Radeng. This is the main monastery of Drompunpa, and so he spent a year there running the monastery. And so when these people would say to him, you in the past were at Radeng Monastery, and there was no geshe who was more well known than you. But then you all of a sudden up and left. And you muffed up all of your plans. You were in Rajang, and there were, and when you were in Rajang, there were geshes there. There was Chungbu and Neu who said, "Please come to Rajang," but you didn't go. So you had these great plans and opportunities, and yet you've mucked them up.
Actually, that means if you still there, the Rajang will in your hand won't lose to those geshe.
Okay, so if you had stayed at Rajang, it would still be in your hands, under your control. You would not have lost it to those other geshes.
Ta te kyora cheshi chi tru suresta. Ta dine di jele ya kon penyu pe ro kran phoyu penbe longbal pe ne penbola chagib saji dine ji sa ji chagib sa je mi. Ta chagib la ya dene gindun de mangbun du che kab di du se gindu tongta du sare. Gindu tongta du kab le ya Tiduzan tezi chorangi gindun tisolea daji be buan rabaji karso daji ngaranzo tisaji njoksha na soro daji gindun tizu chedu daji songjo rabashira chem songjo cheme yinza da karche deosa ginlong tisu gindun ba tisu samalo be shokbe takbar tolongan rogors da tolonga chilolea kala longan rogors da ti chorangi nosores Kabduzan Tizi, Kala, Songjor, this Chayana, and Tata Tolonga Drogo Maras. Chazan Tati, Chorangi Nordus. Tachoran the D. Janga Chen Chibina, Tachoran street dog, Samarataji, 라간 버루리 캠댕기기 진참 난신 street dog 나 차로서스 가야 대소민기 최고 토는 대소민기 지딩의 토는 대소민기 rin당민기 차로레스 아바도 초랑 게베 내걸라 초랑 겐고 쳐두산 깔라카부쳐 욕부 중계매 그봐 욕부 중계매 클라스아메 강에 테레스 세상 다단의 데지 잘라디지 송조체 냥도 거스 냐데는 제마 겐고 쳐두산에 배주 따는 거스 달랍지 겨거다 포토와
And so they thus said to him, "You have messed up these plans." Then after that, Potowa had gone to the land of Peiyu, to Pembo. And while he was there at a place called Daiget, he founded he was at a monastery called Daiget Monastery. And at that time, there gathered there a large Sangha, about 1,000 members of the Sangha. And so they said to them, when you were there at Daiget, at that point, for the sake of those thousands of Sangha members, you should have gathered a few things. You should have accumulated some resources at that time. But you didn't. And so at that point, all of those bhikshus needed to go out every day to go begging for food. So they say, this is a mistake. You should have accumulated a few things to provide food for the Sangha, and you didn't do that, and so you made a mistake. And so if you continue only being like this, then eventually you're going to be like a street dog running around outside the monastery, a street dog who no one is going to pay any attention to, either in worldly terms or in the Dharma terms. You're going to be like a worthless street dog. In particular, when you get to be old, then you're going to have great difficulties. You won't have anyone to help you. You'll have great difficulty getting your food and providing yourself food. So now, while you can, you should gather some things so that you will be able to use them when you're old. So this is the advice that people gave him.
Susu kambe gan susu lang to chores susu le tis benjo gores susu le pema to misida pento mares jezang da kyorang pochoga ji chagores madobe zhe mare cheje ngale ya labse jangge mangbo chungs labse jangge tenam lo kong worches ya to tuji serba da drin de console la tuji ses 투지지 스기인스다 고조알디 트렌딩게 랍지 장게들 투지지 스기인스 이나야 고수기 알아야지 최답 서머베 잘 랍자가데 오늘은 데 덴바렌도 따티 랍자도 오늘 전에기 지그 랍자디 오늘 전에기 야부지렌도 삼바 근데 가제마소스 데 마젠베도 전동파 근데 랍세 장게 디술이야. 다 민디수. 안 치주 마iten게. 안에다지 가르르 치와 마iten바. 다는 신기 지 코레 동에 마iten바. 다 디수 오늘 탑교알라 삼바로 근데지 이무바다. 다 이무바다 지 셈 직배 로판보다. 다는 신기 지 ngо차 삼바로 근데기 삼게 좀
And so it says here, you need to, the advice they give is that you need to knock and shoot your own arrow. The meaning of this is knocking, that's putting the arrow on the string and shooting it yourself. This means that you need to be able to get up on your own 2 feet. You need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet yourself. So they're saying you need to have some resources, some wealth. And if you don't, you won't be able to help yourself. And if you can't help yourself, you won't be able to help anyone else either. You need to be self-sufficient and be able to stand on your own. And so there are many people who have given him this advice out of concern. And so Potowa's responses to them I say, thank you. So thank you very much for giving me that advice. But he'd never thought that that advice might be true. But not only did he never think that the advice might be true, in addition to that, he never even really thought that they were actually concerned for them. In fact, he felt even more depressed and disgusted. He thought to himself that they had never considered the fact that they're going to die. They'd never contemplated death. They never recalled the suffering of samsara. They were really quite bad off. And this is very depressing. This means that he had very wearying and sad in his mind and very astonishing.
다들 보도에게 양가 가르침 그랬잖아. 다들 이제 콘리아 랍제 경계 됐어. 전대게 됐어. 계속 시야디. 아주 시기 매비나. 계속 시기 매비나. 다 고수 시야디. 다가라 레스. 이나야 우리 니수 토할라 가르래도 알았잖아. 되네 우리 니수 토할라 아 상물로 예바도 칭예바 차대 알았어. 배나 가르랬잖아. 당부 가르쳐 오르스는 우리게 레기 드분도지. 우리게 레기 드부 세소나 잘라 사바이나야 보라 지 가르 잘라 싸고 사바이나 소미토바 죽고 사바이나 죽미토바 된지 중고 알았어. 아 라바르도 에너지 가르에 지 치와사데 거두용 참여밤 거두용 학과에 매베 인두산에 디균센데 다다 지 잘라 사사데 같이 잘라 소지린이야 시선 가르쳐 버렸다. 최 주모도지 잘라 소지린이야 아니 시소나 다 가르쳐 버렸어. 다트네 신이 양결 미 루딘라야 깨야 예비나다 다지 양결지 최도 제초유기랬어. 이내야 시세두사는 가와견 주의 가완 주의 아주 하고 매봤어. 드네 두산 디균센라 때네 되네 가수라다 구주의기다지 계시야디 지 치와 챙겐지리면데 계속 따다대는 거지.
And so what Potowa would say to those people who gave him such advice is that if you're not going to die, then that's exactly how it is. But the actual nature of things is that we are all going to die, and we do not know when or how we are going to die. And so if first we were to exhaust all of the results of our previous karma and then try to accumulate new things, then we wouldn't be able to make anything new. We wouldn't be able to get anything new. But it's uncertain when we're going to die, and we do not know how we are going to die. So if we die while still accumulating things, what are we going to do? If we haven't done any dharma, then up to that point, what will we do then? And then after you die, as it says, after you die, you could practice dharma if you're a reborn human, but you do not know where you will be reborn or go after death. So after you die, if you're going to be reborn as a human, that would be fine. But we do not know where we're going to be reborn. We do not know where we will go when we die. And so for that reason, talk such as this is a sign of not having thought about or not having recalled death.
다들 인도산 다 샴리양 아주 검자이 다 검자디 다도 공도 주변의 신기 다도랑 아주 상물로 칭해 말했어. 당아 펜시 아주 머시와디 오늘 소남 첨부스나 장도 람주 첨부스나 장도 간다 아주 뱀미시다 가서지 쇠디 첨부레스 이나야 다다파도지 세디 미지 동세를 송화대 아주 하마고바 쟤는 미지 폐제 조상 미지 망부지 가르투주 망부지 촐라친 근데 다다다 여바 캠부 니데지 가르쳐야지 여바 좀 깨고 하지 니데지 니주인도지 아주 태대 말이지 다 이미 기시 아주지 오늘 전에 다 미지 폐지를 조찬도 단 증민도 삼삼 그 로디 딜레 응지 아지 게여비나 아니지 미지 디바 디베기 미지 게임을 버서나다도 미지 동세도 로마고 바지 용사래데 다다보다 중민도 다 다대 뒤줄이양 아주 떼지 가지고 수수 미지디 오늘 가수라다지 동스 가지고 떼지 삼로를 코르체 다 마음발지 미지디 된다 되마지 용하지기 다 간다 지기 인 삼바로 지기 근데 지기 로 베지 가르샤 가시지마도 매 맞게 의미나 따때 오늘 진행 가서 따지 베 미지비 다 간다 개바 상고선나도 람르 심부를 차디요래 제가 디 균제나 때네 아주 진지지기 간다 된다로 삼을 다지는 공개한다.
So next we have 5 minutes of meditation. And so as before, we will meditate upon the certainty of death. Death is certain, and the fact that we have not died up to this point is actually just great merit. It's things working out really well. It's a very good luck. It's a great good fortune. But if we were to now go and leave it empty-handed or leave it meaningless, that wouldn't be good. Up to this point, we have wasted a whole lot of time. We've wasted so much time. We really need to regret that we have wasted that time. This is the situation we have come to. Because it's important that we leave this life that we do not leave this life empty-handed. So if we think up to ourselves that up to now we have wasted a little bit of time. But if we've wasted a lot of time. But if we think about this a bit, we think about how we could use this life. We really think about this carefully. It's quite possible that we will think to ourselves, now I need to do something to make this human life meaningful in the future. If we can even think this for a few seconds, then this is really very good fortune. It is working out very well. And so I'd like to ask you to please contemplate this for a few minutes.